the flow of remittances, that plays a vital role in Kenya's economy, shaping livelihoods, household spending, foreign exchange reserves, and the broader macroeconomic stability. Recently, the United Kingdom overtook Saudi Arabia as Kenya's second largest source of diaspora remittances, a shift that signals important changes in global labor markets, migration patterns, and economic linkages. So we see the total number there, 5.04 billion. That's about 650 billion Kenyan shillings. That's the total remittance for that period. Joining me now to unpack this, we have Steve Ogutu, who's a public policy expert right there in Kenya. Great to have you on the show, Steve.
To join you on Business Incorporated.
Fantastic. Always great to have you, Steve. So, looking at this switch now and where Kenya gets its remittances, what does this shift in ranking with the UK now ahead of Saudi Arabia? What is it telling us about changes, in Kenya's global labor migration patterns?
Right. Maybe I could start by really painting a context of the whole situation. We have about 200,000 Kenyans, who are working in Saudi Arabia, and we know that in the recent years there have been a lot of issues around labor laws that don't favor immigrants in general in Saudi Arabia. We've also seen cases of high remittance costs, and there's I think a new law that was introduced which requires that 15% of VAT is
Und die Text ist noch nicht da, oder? Just in case.
Goes into the remittance sent back home. And so a lot of these reforms have really contributed to this shift. But most importantly, this shift also signals, transition by Kenyans who are migrating, to places like the UK because they want they're more concerned about skilled labor. They want more permanent jobs, and we've seen professionals like nurses, doctors, IT people, migrating to places like the UK, as opposed to the Gulf, where mostly it's temporary jobs and it's casual laborers, drivers, cleaners, and things like that. So I think all these things really reflect these changes in terms of the Kenyan people in the diaspora.
The United States still leading there with about $2.73 billion. So how significant are remittances for Kenya's overall economy, in terms of GDP, foreign exchange stability, and household consumption right now?
Yeah, the remittance are a major source for GDP. We see Kenyans in the diaspora investing locally. They have businesses here, and these investments really are critical, inspiring the country's economy. And when it comes to the foreign exchange, it's one of the major foreign exchange for Kenya, and it cushions Kenya, the Kenyan shilling, mostly during the balance of payments pressure. And so when it comes to the household level, when money is sent back, families are able to take care of their, the basic needs, food, shelter, education, health, and things like that, and therefore helping to address poverty and some of these pressing challenges that we still grapple with as global South countries.
So to what extent have, Saudi Arabia's labor market reforms and increased, remittance costs, how does that influence, this reverse trend?
Yeah, I think what we have seen in Saudi Arabia has been what experts describe as Saudization, which is basically nationalization, and the policies that favor the Saudi nationals in terms of the labor laws and policies, and it means better wages for the locals, better opportunities for the locals, and this locks out immigrants, including those from Kenya, when it comes to opportunities and better wages. So that is one, and then two, there has been this 15% value added tax on remittance, and this has discouraged, the immigrants who are working in Saudi Arabia from sending funds back home. So most of them would rather just save the money from there and then maybe find a way to get it back without using the central money transfer system. And I think those are some of the major issues. And of course, a pressing issue that has existed for many years has been the cases of human rights violation. I think this has been covered by the media. They have been discussed at various levels, including at the African Union and the the United Nations Human Rights Commission, and others have deliberated, and even the International Labour Law, they have deliberated about the cases of human rights violation for immigrants in Saudi Arabia. And I think those are some of the major issues that have, or reforms and issues in general that have led to this big shift in terms of the UK now becoming a major source of remittance vis-a-vis Saudi Arabia, which has actually reduced by 25%. If you read the latest statistics that came out recently.
Some policy measures, Kenya could pursue to better support workers abroad and, maximize, remittance inflows both in, the Gulf states and Western economies.
Right. In terms of reform, I think Kenya through its Ministry of Labor, which has been trying to do a fantastic job in terms of pursuing, addressing some of these issues that have been facing Kenyans working in the Gulf. It has really continued with having those bilateral engagements and having bilateral labor agreements that put at the center the human rights component. Fighting for better wages for the Kenyan people, improving worker protection, and things like that, which has been a problem. So I think those are some of the reforms that the Kenyan government needs to continue pursuing. I also think it's important for the Kenyan government to engage with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to ensure that the 15% VAT, which is actually inhibiting remittance, is at least maybe reduced or removed altogether, so that we get a win-win. The economy in Saudi benefits, they get labor and all that, and back home we are also able to benefit from the remittance from Saudi Arabia by Kenya from there. And so, and I also think maybe there's need for them to think about developing investment instruments that are targeted to the diaspora community that are living there, including bonds, housing schemes and others that can encourage the people working in the diaspora to invest back home. And so for me, I think those are some of the policy reforms that I would, advise the Kenyan government to really think about taking forward.
All right. Well, it's still great remittance numbers, still at record highs at this point. Thank you so much. Steve Ogutu, he's a public policy expert. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Larry, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Fantastic. Thank you.